All right, folks, welcome to Biomassed. This is not episode 53. It is, in fact, the episode 1 plus Avengers, or the episode that was 54 but is now 3. But we're going to do some interesting math at some point, and we'll do it publicly so you can all grade us on it. It'll be awesome. So for the episode that is not 53 but perhaps 54, and we're not really sure what episode it is, but we had this long conversation before the show. I've said every number that I think I have in my pocket, so let's get started. On that note, we're gonna talk a little bit about Hotfix 1.1 tonight, and we're gonna probably talk some random other stuff. I think there's a bit of good news on the forums. I think Zell's got some great news about Legion. He's gonna drop on us in here in a little bit. We're all waiting with bated breath. So we're going to go ahead and get our shout out intros in the way. Gosh, this is starting off to be a grease fire. So we're going to go ahead and start with our intros, and we're going to go from the bottom to the top. So Sarizel, please lead us off.
Yeah, I'm Sarizel, a member of CPM1, a co-host here on the show, and an editor on the blog.
Outstanding. Pokey.
I'm Pokey Draven from OSG Planetary Operations. I am a co-host here on the show and also an editor and writer for the blog.
Good deal. And Jadek?
Jadek Menaheim, CEO of Zerg Cloud Consortium and maker of things.
True that. Bait?
I am Aiwha Bait, director at Demonic Cowboys and writer for the Biomassed blog.
Outstanding. And I'm Jason Larison. I'm a member of OSG Planetary Operations on the desk side, and I fly in Eve with Agony Empire, aka Agony Unleashed. All right, so we've got an interesting show because we did have a hotfix that came out that hit on some very interesting things. Guys, got to mark my words. I got to use the word interesting a lot less this show. I'm going to try to figure out how to cancel on that one. So they did talk a little bit about Apex suits in the hotfix, and I think that's one of the more discussed around piece in terms of what is the function of the Apex suit and really what is it doing for us now. I actually like the change, but we'll get into that. I think we had a couple of other items in the hotfix, and we're going to let Zell kind of go down some of those items and actions.
I barely remember what happened in the hotfix. All right. I'll start it off.
Check your Skype. I made a list.
I'll start it off. No, I got the article open. We got a blog now. So.
By the way, I'd like to give my plug in for Joe's Truck and Tow, aka the Podcasting 101 University that we all went to and paid a phenomenal amount of tuition to learn how to operate at this high of a level. So just remember, Joe's Truck and Tow and Podcasting.
This is a very, very professional operation. We're clearly one of the most professional outfits covering CCP games, short of the Matani.com itself. All right, so yeah, there was a hotfix deployed a few days ago. It kind of just happened. It wasn't announced ahead of it really being pushed out. The biggest thing was that Apex suits were changed so that you can actually change the fittings on them. They're still pretty limited in that you shouldn't theoretically be able to get too far above your same standard equipment you're used to from a power grid and CPU specification. And the other, of course, ability is for you to apply the new skins to them. And then the other thing they did was they moved PG mods to use high slots, and they have a CPU cost. And then CPU mods, which used to not have any cost, now have a PG cost, and are of course still in the low slots. Yeah, I wasn't. That was a really drastic change that I was not expecting. But it's interesting, and in a certain respect, it makes some sense. But clearly, there are some dissenters for that change.
It's that feeling you get when you log on and you don't realize that that's been changed.
And every one of your fits is broken.
Every one of your fittings doesn't work.
Yeah.
Pretty sure every one of my fits are broken.
Yep, that's yeah, I think all of my fits have CPUs in those, and I need to fix that now. And then the other big thing was that they have handled myofibrils. They're now capped at 3 modules now, so you can no longer stack 5 of them and go flying across the map.
I wanted to go to the moon. Why did you take it from me?
The moon.
Yeah, there were various other tweaks I didn't care about too. I should mention that.
Well, one that I like is the tweak to the remote explosive throw distance. They basically shortened the throw distance on the normal type and increased it on the packed type, which is the small radius, large damage one, mostly for use on vehicles, which I think is probably welcome because people hate remotes being used as grenades, and this should probably help tone that down a bit.
Yeah.
Until people start throwing packed REs as grenades instead of standard ones.
It's like a 2-meter radius. It's not going to be a big problem.
All right, then, never mind.
I think remotes from an elevated position might still be a bit of a drama, but I actually don't mind that all that much. It's the scouts that like can run by you at about 9 meters per second, and then fling them like a frisbee. That's the ones that really are aggravating. So let's I guess we can go ahead and start doing a tad of a deep dive on some of this. What do you guys think about, just kind of open-ended question to the group, what do you guys think about the changes to the Apex suits? And I guess in order to frame the question, does anybody here not have at least one Apex suit?
I have 0 Apex suits. I should mention that.
Okay, well, we just established that Apex suits are the base standard for being cool in dust. All right.
Yeah,
so,
I figured that was the case, but I just, I didn't want to spend that much money. I didn't feel like it would be that important to me because I just drop advanced or proto suits as necessary.
Yeah, I would, as I look back on when the Apex suits came out, I was very sketchy on putting out that much Aurum to pick up an Apex suit because it was, it was locked, and there was a lot of stuff I was like, I really don't like the fits on it either. But I went ahead and got one. I had a bunch of Aurum laying around, so I went ahead and I basically spent almost all of the Aurum I had hoarded up over the last year. And the Apex suits in their current iteration now with the 1.1 hotfix is what I really wish that they had been when they first came out. I think they're definitely worth their value is clearly increased as opposed to what they were, like a week ago. I will definitely say that.
My concern mostly stems from the fact that what's the difference now between a standard BPO with its standard slot layout and an Apex suit with a prototype slot layout? And I'm almost wondering if this might be actually a good prompt to kind of push for a standardized slot layout for all tiers, because at this point, since the Apex is editable, I mean, there's obviously some limitations with fitting, but you could argue that they might be better, like a straight up upgrade from a standard BPO now, which could be kind of problematic.
Yeah, I mean, I am a bit worried about that personally. My view is that it's okay for an Apex suit to be better than standard, and it probably kind of is better than standard, but that it needs to be at the very least inferior to any fit you can accomplish with an advanced suit.
It's pretty much, yeah, I would say it's pretty much in that niche. I don't think that's, I certainly don't think they're OP. I mean, what they've effectively done is they give you something better to work with than a starter fit, and if you remember how these were marketed, it was really tailored towards basically newer players. At least that's how a lot of the published marketing reference this was. It's like, hey, buy your proto suit now and you can grow into it in X, Y, and Z. I like them. They're not bad. I mean, but my beef with them, I've got 3 of them. I've got 3 Logi suits, the Cal, the Gal, and the Minmatar Logi. And
no love really for the slave masters, huh?
No, I just don't really dig their suits. I just doesn't do anything for me. And plus, well, here's the real deal. What it also tells me, and this is a total aside on this one, but if you really want to know the value of an individual piece of equipment or weapon system, when you pare everything down to the Apex suit level, which is basically standard gear across the board, and it's where your skills matter or where the innate capabilities of the piece of equipment or the weapon is, that really tells you like which ones work well, and then how that generally tends to grow linearly as you skill up or you have better suit bonuses and things like that. The rep tool, like I'll tell you right now, the Minmatar Logi suit with that rep tool and the bonus you get from the Min Logi bonus, which applies to all your Apex suits, I can take that suit and go into almost any match other than pretty competitive, not quite PC match, and I can do very well. with that Minmatar Logi suit, which is basically all standard gear. But because of the rep tool and the bonus I get to it, I'm crushing it. So it really tells you what works and what doesn't. I can tell you, like, at least that's just my observation. The ability to drop the like a Kren's damage mod on the Galente suits now is pretty handy because they had a really shit, high slot layout. My only beef for the Logi suits is I wish that you could move the equipment around. At least that, if you can. I certainly haven't figured out how, because I just like them laid out differently when I'm playing. I'm not. Look, I haven't went out and bought a bunch of BPOs so that I can restock them fully and stuff. But they're pretty handy now that you can swap things in and out. Like I was able to drop like a Dren assault rifle on the Gal Logi because I don't like the breach AR, that kind of stuff. It gives you just enough flexibility so you don't feel totally hemmed in by the fit, and it's still pretty throttled back in terms of power. In terms of what you get for CPU and PG, excuse me.
Yeah, I picked up a Min Scout Apex the other day, and I'd forgotten completely about this, but they, because of the no skill fitting requirements, they made the cloak require 0 CPU and PGU. So, I mean, that was kind of a surprise. That really helped give like an added flexibility to the suit when I was adding extra modules to it.
Yeah, I could definitely see that helping.
But I mean, it's been brought up in the forums. Ratati's discussing this about making your CPU and PG skills not apply to the suits because it's been causing some problems with people being able to fit like major prototype weapons on their stuff.
I don't. I think I saw some of that too, and I guess my general thoughts on that are that's fine, but wasn't that the original point of the Apex suit, is that you get something that you can access almost at basically day one, and then it becomes progressively more powerful as you skill up? I mean, isn't that the whole point of it?
Well, your weapons would still be powerful, but just the fitting bonuses that you have for other things wouldn't apply. But I mean, yeah, I know it's a mixed bag.
Well, I mean, look at it this way. Correct me if I'm wrong. The assault suits get a CPU PGU cut to light weapons, right?
Yeah.
So why would that? That's like the base. I mean, that is one of the most significant bonuses that it actually gets. In fact, you could argue that for at least the Galente and the Caldari assault, those are more important than the actual racial bonuses they get.
And there's also for the heavies as well to get that similar bonus.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of my thought. Is I actually like that. I like the fact that it progresses with you in a very parallel fashion. And I think if we get too cute trying to tweak them here or constrain them there and make them more flexible over here, that it may get a bit jumbled. It's a fairly simple solution right now, and to be very frank, it's the most stark way to show somebody what skill progression can do in terms of your ability to operate a piece of equipment, a weapon, or a module.
Okay, you were talking earlier about the standardized slot layout for the Apex suit. You want to expand on that a little bit?
Well, you just mean like tiericide in general?
I knew that word was coming. That word had to be dropped.
I had to. Well, Ironwolf's in here, so I have to do it for him.
Yeah, explain what you mean, because in my mind, it's all suits for advanced are going to have 3 high slots, 3 low slots, 2 equipment slots, and so forth and so on. Is that what you're talking about?
No. Basically, in short, it would just be that all suits have the same slot layout as prototype, but between the tiers, there's a difference in how much PG and CPU they have. So lower tiered suits can't equip proto stuff because they don't have the resources for it.
I see. Okay, interesting.
Yeah, I think that's a better way to approach tiericide, in all honesty, and it gives you a good tool with the Apex suits the way they are now as a baseline for it. I think it's actually not a bad idea. I would really like them to maybe run some numbers and explore it a little bit. I'm not sure what you'd really have to cap the CPU and PG. You'd have to do some real fine tooth comb work on a lot of different setups to understand what you're getting into. But to me, that seems just a very natural way of doing it, and also a very simple way, to be honest with you.
Well, I mean, we said from the start when Apex suits were first announced that it would be a really good exploration into what tiericide would look like, because you've got a prototype suit, but it has very limited resources and can't fit. You couldn't change the fit, so you had standard equipment on. So that would represent basically what a standard BPO would look like, where it had the proto slots with standard amounts of PG and CPU. So the fact that they're allowing us to edit them now, it starts to kind of fall into that territory of what standard normal BPOs could be, but obviously having the added benefit of having BPO modules already fit to it, so you could pick this thing up and run with it completely free, whereas with a standard BPO you'd have to either fit BPO modules that you also owned or put actual ISK or Aura modules on there to make it work. So I mean, I can still see some difference in the value between the two. Apex certainly has its advantages, especially if you're just trying to go for a cheap, quick and dirty suit that's fully BPO and you don't want to have to buy BPO modules or anything like that, or if you just don't have them. Whereas the standard BPOs that we currently have that are non-Apex would be equally as flexible, have lots of slots, but obviously not pre-fit, so you have to actually fork out some money for that.
No, I think you're. I'm maybe a little bit biased because you and I have talked about this version of tiericide for a long time, but I think it's a very simple and elegant way of doing it, because the minute you start jacking around with the actual numbers of slots on stuff, it just introduces so many variables, which in a way is not bad, but I think in the state of where the game is right now, simple solutions that you can tweak to give different flavor by suit or something, but simple solutions work better right now than trying to go through multiple suits by weight class, by race, in terms of how slot layouts work and all this other stuff. Now, the other option that you could go with is literally almost like by weight class. By weight class and by racials, which is close to what they have now, but tweak it a little bit and just make it the same. So all medium frames, no matter what, get the same. All heavy frames get the same. So forth and so on. That's probably closer to what we have now. But I think the Apex, the tiericide option, flavored by the Apex suit, it might end up being closer to what is, I think, where the game is going right now, if that makes sense.
Well, another interesting thing that I've heard people have concerns about the idea of the slot tiericide, and that players could take a cheap suit and then put PG and CPU modules on it to boost the resources up to near proto levels, and then just fill their main rack with proto defenses and basically end up with a very cheap sort of proto-esque suit. But with this change to the PG and the CPU mods, now that they have an associated cost with them, I think that actually kind of helps counteract that effect a bit. So that also could help with stopping that sort of exploitation from happening. So again, I think it'd be interesting to certainly explore. I know some people have done some pretty good work on the forums, looking at comparisons between what a standard suit would look like with the current slots versus with the prototype slots. And I think that people should definitely take a look at that, because it's interesting stuff, and I think that it could be really good for the game, putting more emphasis on player ability rather than just overwhelming suit power, which we currently have. I mean, the difference between a proto suit and a standard suit is pretty huge when you actually look at the numbers. So I think this could be a good thing overall, and I would, in my personal opinion, press for people to actually take a good look at it and form an opinion about it, and either say yay or nay on the subject.
I could kind of see that. I don't know that I'm entirely sold on that point of view yet. I'd have to kind of think through that, but there's a part of me where I'm like, you do have to leave some level of creativity for niche fits, or kind of those really high-end glass cannons. Like, and if you try to put a proto weapon on an Apex suit, that's literally a glass cannon. I kind of like the idea that you have that wiggle room to do some of those kind of things, because, like, so what, you put a proto tank on an Apex suit? How's that? That's still not as good as a proto suit, and yes, it would be cheaper, but I'm less enamored of ISK right now because there's ultimately nothing to do with the ISK other than just buy stuff. In terms of like fungibles that you're using in the match. It's not like I guess now that there's some really basic level of trading, you can introduce other things you can do with ISK to be interesting. But I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but I think we can. I think I'd rather keep it simple first, and then maybe we could branch out. I don't want to put too many bells and whistles on the Apex quite yet. But that's just purely my opinion, though.
Yeah, no, I honestly don't think it's going to be that much of an issue. I'm just saying that I've heard that concern voiced before, and I think that some of the changes to the PG CPU mods will actually kind of help counteract that concern. So that's all I was saying.
No, that's fair. Curious, have you guys picked up any skins yet?
Got my Thucker skin.
Ah, you did?
Yeah, I feel like I'm a jumping cow.
Dude, that Thucker skin
Nice.
is beautiful.
They're still too expensive for me. I'm not going to spend $10 on them.
Yeah, they're just outside the sweet spot for a price point. I really wish that they had kept it to about $5, $5 to $6, and maybe have different tiers. The really baseline one could be, $2 or $3, like the legacy ones, the legacy BPOs. Those could be like $3 or something, $2 or $3, and then the really nice, the classy pirate ones or the factiony ones could be. 6 or 7. I just think $10 is, for the amount of time you get to see it and interact with it. It's just not there. The cost, the benefit of it isn't worth it right now.
Speaking of the legacy ones, are those available in the loyalty store yet?
I don't think so.
I think this coming week they're coming out.
Yes. Okay. Cool.
I wonder if we'll get newsletter skins. Release something
That
on
would
the
be pretty
14th.
cool, actually.
Please. Something cool for the newsletter.
I tell you what, that would be. See, it just dawned on me. The skins is it's a great low cost way to have high impact on the community. With if they released a Mordu's Legion skin on Dust 514 day, that kind of thing. Or you were part of a contest where you got to help design the next skin or something like that. There's just that gives you so many options. And now the cool thing is if they could ever figure out a way where you could do some space Barbie action, where you could interact a little bit more than the 30 seconds in the war barge. I think that would be the absolute bomb diggity, because that's the whole purpose of getting those sort of vanity items is to kind of show them off, frankly.
Yeah, I definitely would like to see something at least within your corp, a corp hangout area, that sort of thing would be really, really cool.
I think Luther said that when Rotati was on. I like the idea of the lobby you go back to isn't your personal merc quarters necessarily. It's it's basically the war barge that it's where everybody that's in your corp or whatever structure that you have, that's where they're all sitting at when they're not in match.
Yeah, I think it would make sense, particularly at some point, and I know we've discussed it in the past. But just if we get the corporate war barge thing as part of the PC work and that sort of thing, to someday expand that into a construct that you're standing on, during your off time, that maybe your quarters are now on your corporate barge instead of at some station you don't give a crud about. That sort of thing would be really cool.
I think that would be pretty sporty, actually. I think there's a lot of stuff they could do with it, but
you're talking to the one big fan of Incarna in
no,
the EVE
I know.
community, so
And trust me, I'm with you on that. But I do like the skins, and they did a really good job on some of them. By the way, the few that I've seen walking around look really, really good. I've been very impressed with them. I just think I think the price point is not helping them. And in all honesty, I tend to think Pokey, I think you call it the little big planet model. If you lower the cost where they're accessible, you'll get to a point where people will buy a lot of them, and I think that evens out. At least that's just me.
Yeah, if they were $5, I'd probably buy 2. They're still getting $10 out of me, and really there's no cost per item for them. So Yeah, I much prefer the lower price, a lot of quantity model rather than we'll just sell a few for really high, which is kind of what Dust has had for a long time, and it's also been the reason why I don't buy a lot of those higher priced items.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. And that's feedback that I've conveyed myself.
And there's yeah.
I mean, even if they did like 50% off sale for like a certain skin every week, that'd be really legit too. Because I'd probably pick up certain ones depending on the week.
That'd be pretty cool. That's what I know. Here's the Storm does. They'd have like one hero and 2 skins, each week, from like Tuesday to Tuesday. That's half off. It's only half off for the. It's only half off for the cash value for like the heroes. They don't get if you're buying them with in-game currency, they don't get cut off. It's just the cash value gets cut.
Right.
Everything Heroes of the Swarm, tune into the Biomassed blog.
Yeah, that's the only non-Dust article right now on our blog is that I did a Heroes of the Storm article.
No, I mean, like I said, it's the model that they have. If you're going to go with like full Monty microtransactions, you need to really approach it from a quantity over quality. Then you have a certain quality section where you're going to have whales like Denny that are going to cough up like major money for that kind of stuff. He strikes me as the kind of guy that would pay $300 to $400 a month for Candy Crush.
But Jay, there was also that Hoopla Eve side that with the Eve skins bug. That was kind of interesting to follow.
Oh yeah, you could put like any skin on any ship for a while.
Yeah, and those skins are more expensive than the ones in Dust.
Yeah, their Aurum value in Eve is definitely different than it is for us.
Yeah, and the big thing is their skins, cost-wise, they range based on the size of the ship. Like frigate skins are really cheap, and like the skin that I looked at for my to put on my carrier, I may make my carrier a Quaif carrier. I'm thinking about it. But it's a pretty hefty price tag to skin a carrier.
Are the Eve skins BPOs as well?
They are. The way they work though is so like with Dust, you have like your skin is like an item, and presumably you can trade it at any time. Whereas in Eve it's a license, and that license is an item that you can trade. But once you apply the license to your character, it unlocks that skin on that ship for your character permanently.
But not all of them are permanent. Some of them are like 30 days.
Yeah, they have the ability to do non-permanent ones to get so that they can drop in loot rewards or give out or something like that. But anything you purchase is permanent, and a lot of the old legacy skins that people had on like which were like just custom ships or whatever, those turned into permanent skins as well. But the big thing with those is once you apply them, you're tying them to your character at that point. So, whereas I think you could sell a Dust skin at any time after you're tired of using that.
Okay.
Yeah, I actually kind of like the way that the Eve side did it. It's a tradable item. It works basically like an article of clothing in Eve. Until you apply it to the character, you can trade it and move it around, and it's got value and all that kind of good stuff. So I kind of like that idea, but that was definitely built to some degree with a market in mind. Or at least they understood that they had this backdrop of that market, and they needed to move the skins that way as a commodity. So I do.
Well, I mean, the
like
difference is that in Eve, once you use it once, it's permanent. You can no longer sell it, whereas in Dust, you can always go back and still sell it.
Yeah, they call them, they do call them licensed, but the better way that it actually applies is like a skill book, because the way the game technically reads it is it's like a skill that you have on your character.
Yeah, it's actually one of those weird things, and this is the thing they're actually working on changing with Eve, is that right now, your skill books are always an item, and it's like when you inject the skill, it's actually not like applying it to your character so much as it's moving it to a folder, like an inventory folder called Brain. But it's actually still considered an item because everything in Eve is considered a physical item, practically.
The brain in the box testing that was going on a little while back.
Yeah, that's the change they're working on. They were just testing it on CC like a week ago or something, and that concept is to move all that off to another server and have it managed. It should make latency much less of a problem.
Okay. Let's see. Anything else for 1.1 that's on your guys' mind?
The myofibril changes kind of interesting. I mean, toning them down to 3. I would like to see them buff the damage properties of the melee mods. I mean, I'm fine with having it like capped around 3. I mean, I wouldn't mind a boost in my melee damage.
I could see that. I mean, that wouldn't be too bad.
It looks like Rattati added a slot to all the LEVs and added an additional 25% to PG CPU, which is good because they were worthless after that change. So I think it's a stopgap measure till a proper rebuild of the LEVs, but overall it'll help at least in the meantime to make them not so explodey the second you drop them.
They still pop really nice.
Oh yeah. I mean, the LEVs need some serious work. They're kind of a mess right now, but this should help for making it a little more viable in the meantime. There's also some minor tweaks to looks like vehicle turrets. It looks like large missile turrets. The reload time has been reduced, so they reload a little bit faster. Large blasters do more heat damage, has more heat cost. That will be interesting. He's changed armor hardener and shield hardener activation delay from 1 to 2. I can only imagine that means that there's a longer delay between hitting the module and actually having the effect kick in, which is again interesting. Shield hardener recharge. I'm not sure what that actually means. Lowered the railgun heat cost, so you can probably fire 4 instead of 3 shots of the railgun. That's good. Increased the large blaster reload time. Fix the militia armor hardener to make it to 40% instead of 25%. And I think that's it for vehicles.
Yeah, nah, I don't know much about the. Well, I can't speak too intelligently about some of the tank changes, but I can tell you that any work done to Lavs is probably positive. I don't know that they could make them much worse. Well, I take that back. I'm sure they can, but
this is CCP here. Come on.
I'm with you. But generally, anything that they do to them is going to be better. Okay, let's see. What else do we have on the docket for tonight? As we're scrambling and groping for topics, I did actually do my homework and saw Avengers: Age of Ultron. That was pretty legit.
Oh, good. I'm glad you're caught up on that. Pretty solid.
I was
film,
very
entertaining.
I was very impressed by it.
Yeah, same here. It was really quite good.
I was mentioning this to Jadek before the show. Avengers: Age of Ultron is that's really the reason that you have an integrated cinematic universe for like a huge sort of like the mythos or the lore that's behind the comic books, which is in many cases 70 years deep. But that is the reason that movie is literally a great example of why you should have a integrated cinematic universe or integrated media universe. Let me put it that way, because you didn't spend an hour and a half, 30 to 45 minutes out of the 2-hour movie trying to figure out how did the hero get his powers and how do you get the team together. They just like full at you like in the first 30 seconds of the movie. Everything's fully established. And it blends really, really nicely from all the different things that they do around that one movie, just in the other movies, the TV show, like the comics.
Do you watch the TV show too, or?
I have on occasion. I am not up to date on it
because they do milk the tie-ins there.
Oh yeah,
especially they for this one. There was there's a line, and I'm trying to be like as non-spoilery as possible because I know like people there are some countries who don't have it.
Here's the reality: we've already you've got it released globally right now.
No, it's not globally released.
You sure about that?
Yeah. I believe
who doesn't have it?
I believe the folks in China have to wait like a couple more months.
No, that's not accurate because Rattati said that he's already seen Avengers.
Okay. I don't know what he did then. He might have pirated it because I talked to. I asked Frame about it. Frame said that they didn't get to see it yet. That they weren't going to for months.
Yeah, Imp was saying something about that last week, I think.
I remember some other country said something about July. I don't know. But anyways, No, there was a comment, and I wish they would have found a way to actually get like the TV characters cameoed in for for part of it. But Fury said he accomplished a certain thing with the help of some friends, and the TV show is, of course, the friends involved. But so to move from Avengers a bit is actually the other big news that I thought was very interesting on the DC side of things, and why I think that they should just give up and stop making movies and just go make TV shows because they're far better at it. Is for next year now, in addition to your Arrow and your Flash, and then we already knew they were making the same producers were making Supergirl, which is going to be on CBS, and that's gotten officially picked up for next fall. They also announced a show that's called Legends of Tomorrow, which is going to be on CW next year. And it has some characters that have been introduced on Flash, and some characters that have been introduced on Arrow, and some new characters. And so that's all going to be. There's going to be like 4 shows made by the same producers, all in the DC universe, crossing over back and forth. Yeah, and it's not broody and boring like Man of Steel and the Superman v Batman trailer.
Okay. Well, aside from the editorial pieces, I would that you just laid out there, I would agree with you that they are much better at making TV programming than movie programming. For whatever reason, they do a very good job of that. I think the Flash is pretty good. I think Arrow is pretty good. And they can take it in a lot of different directions. I think they have learned how to do TV well over the years. That's my opinion. And Marvel has tried in fits and starts to do TV every once in a while, and it just, for whatever reason, it doesn't pan out very well.
I mean, I enjoy Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. a lot, but it's not on the same quality grade, I would say. It's not what the high bar I've come to expect from Joss Whedon, and it's not the high bar I've come to expect from the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It's good, but it's not hitting the bar for either. Whereas the DC shows are really impressive. And one of the things that actually I'm very, disappointed with is the fact that they chose not to base or even try and connect their movies to the TV shows, because I think they actually have a huge advantage coming through from the TV shows to compete with Marvel, because they're able to tell so many more stories in that strong TV environment.
I think to a degree, but they've already caught some flack that the guy who is going to be the Flash in the upcoming movie is not the same guy as on the TV, and the TV character is very popular. So there's a little bit of a drawback in that if you want to bring out A-list characters on the TV, it gives it can muddy the waters for you.
Well, I just don't know why it's so important for them to cast a quote unquote movie actor for their movies. I mean, cast the TV people, bring them in.
No, well, that's what everybody's saying, is that they should have brought the guy in that's playing Barry Allen now to play the Flash in the movie. In fact, the guy that's playing the Flash in the movie, I had to actually IMDb the guy to figure out who the hell he was. I was like, he's certainly not a big name.
Yeah, and even with the choices they have for whatever Affleck, when you deal with the quote unquote movie actors, you're paying them a heck of a lot more for often not really a better portrayal of the character than you would get off of a TV actor. In the case, like in a lot of cases, I think movies need certain movie actors, because you go see a movie because Morgan Freeman's in that movie, so we like Morgan Freeman movies, so let's go see that. But when it comes to a comic book genre, you go for the character more than you go for the actors who have been picked to portray them, and I don't know why they would need to go with movie grade actors for this.
Well, I think comic book movies are finally coming out. They're still kind of in this sort of period where they almost feel like, I think that they feel like they need a established actor to give them some level of not validity, but for people to quote unquote take them serious. Because if you don't have an established actor signing on to it, you're not. I think they might run into some issues. At least I think they're starting to go away from that. They can get kind of creative with some stuff, but there's always going to be a little bit of that unless you have an established player in some of these, at least in one role, like some kind of marquee role. You might not get the hype that you would otherwise get. I'm not saying it's right, by the way. That's my guess anyway. Now, I did want to take one quick issue with I did not find Man of Steel boring. I thought it was a very different kind of movie, and it also highlighted the difference in DC movies and Marvel movies. Is DC movies, they, it's somewhat public knowledge. They've put out a bit of a fatwa, that they tend to want them to be much more serious than the Marvel movies. Whereas the Marvel movies, I think, really, really work hard at being the comic book on screen, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's pretty fair. I think that the more recent Avengers movie had quite a bit of humor in it, and it probably appealed to a wider audience while still maintaining a fairly serious overtone.
I just, Superman snapping necks, man. I just can't go with it. I'm sorry, it doesn't work for me.
Well, it didn't work for a whole lot of people, in all honesty. I think that was probably one of the things that they definitely could have done differently in that movie. By and large, though, I thought it was pretty good. Now, what I found interesting about the trailer, I went back and did a little bit of homework. So not only does it have a lot of shades of The Dark Knight Returns, which is just a seminal, like, kind of graphic novel that really kind of culminates with a Batman versus Superman kind of event that you see foreshadowed in the trailer. But the current movie, excuse me, the one that we're referring to in the trailer, it really has a lot of shades of this. It was a video game that came out. I've got it somewhere over here. That was all these DC heroes in kind of this alternate universe of if one little thing had changed, how many of the characters would have been different. And for it's not. Gosh, I cannot think of the name of it. I've literally got it here. I'm gonna have to go dig it out in a second. But a lot of the characterizations that you see, like when Superman they were referring to him as God, or not really sure if he's good or evil, and then you saw like those guys genuflecting to him. That's like almost right out of that video game.
So we're now a comic book podcast. I think we should specify that somewhere.
Yes. What's this Dust game? Tell me.
Best podcast ever.
Pokey just wants to go eat dinner because he hasn't yet.
No, we can talk about Dust 512 or whatever it's called.
Yeah, Dust 512. That's right.
Awesome.
Games Injustice. Sorry,
yeah.
I had to get up and walk over to my shelf. It was bugging the hell out of me. It's the Games Injustice. It's actually really good. And by the way, an outstanding comic book tie-in. It's got a long running comic
We're
book.
back in comic books again. No, okay. So there was half the silence, the really awkward 2-minute silence just there, just completely will get cut out, which is great. But no, so there was an article I read, and I forgot where I got it. I think I got it from Massively, Massively OP as blog names. And it was posted on 10 Ton Hammer, and it was an interview with Nathan Richardson, formerly known as CCP Over, who used to be an executive producer of Eve and maybe some involvement with Dust, I guess, in the early ages, talking about his current project, which is Eternal Crusade, and QJ here, but I'm going to cut him off and continue my thing on the article, which is, I guess, that Eternal Crusade is going to have region-locked servers as opposed to what Dust does, which is allow, particularly in certain game modes, for it to be played by players all over the world in the same match. Mostly for the reasons of lag, which is totally understandable given the concerns with Dust and how it plays. But I found it in particular humor that the article author referred to him as being of Dust 512 and Defiance fame, which was also funny because I didn't even remember who he was and had to look it up.
No, CCP Overa he's been around for a while, actually. And he was one of the original folks that was heading up Dust, or if not heading it up, he had a large hand in Dust earlier. And he also obviously had a hand in Defiance. By the way, both of those not exactly groundbreaking, FPS MMOs. The thing that I would caution people about this, I love Warhammer 40k. Cross the two does as well. And me and him, we are actually part of the Founders Pack, sort of like the pre-alpha group on Eternal Crusade. The deal is that the previous EP they had, this guy named Miguel Caron, was he was literally the gold standard for how do you do collaborative development of a game and share stuff. He was a very, very impressive guy in terms of dealing with the community, and everything that he said, the team would literally turn and deliver on. Like if you, and they would do live Twitch streams, like where you'd like interact with them live on the net. And if he committed to something to a player right then, bet you could write it down that within about a week or 2 weeks or whatever the time frame that the actual lead dev that was sitting next to him, whatever his name was Patrick Balthazar, whatever Patrick would give him is like, I think we can do that in 3 weeks. Sure as shit, in three weeks later on the next Twitch event, they were like, yeah, and we were able to change this or do X, Y, and Z. It was not gimmicky at all. But their original vision was to have these sort of mega battles. Think planet side, but bigger, kind of roughly in the 1,000 person per battle kind of area. And they actually had the technology to do it, and they've demonstrated it before. The issue is when this guy came on, when CCP Ovir came on, aka Nathan Richardson, everything about the game instantly started to look a lot like the words that were being used with Dust 3-4 years ago, which for guys like me and Cross, all our radar went up immediately. So they've definitely scaled some things down, and they've been changing some things around. I think it still has the potential to be pretty good, but it sounds starting to sound not in a good way like Dust of old in terms of what they're going to put out. Now, obviously they're working with different hardware, and I think there's a lot of different capability. It's also a very different kind of game too. It is a third-person shooter game, not a first-person shooter game, so there's some mechanical differences there. But they have a lot of art. They still do their Twitch streams every week. It is a good-looking game. If you like 40K, you're probably going to end up playing it. And they are very, very well steeped into the lore. And they've actually got a couple of the very heavy-hitting fiction authors for Black Library working for them, doing all the lore background. Literally, New York Times bestseller authors are helping write the lore and the campaign background, which is very, very complex and very steeped into the game for Eternal Crusade. It looks good. It's got a lot of neat things that I'm personally excited about it, but just seeing this guy's track record with Defiance, which had all kinds of promise but delivered on nothing, and then you see Dust, which had all kinds of promise and has not delivered on anything that the original regime set out to. All the work Rattati's got aside from that. I would have wholeheartedly recommended folks take a look at this game. A couple months ago. Now I'm a little bit cautious about it, so just kind of take that with a grain of salt.
It's all those early promises, man. It gets everyone. It got Dust. It got you're having these concerns with Eternal Crusade. I know the Elite Dangerous folks are quite up in arms about things like single player no longer being an offline, a completely offline playable option. Star Citizen, I'm of course a decent fan of, and have given way more money than any sane person should. Not quite to Denny level of insane, but pretty bad. But I'm fully aware the other shoe's going to drop one of these days. It's just a matter of when and how.
Yeah, no, and like I said, I think it's. I've actually looked for more indie game developers because those are the guys that really, the quality of the game will never be as polished as a major studio project, but you can get really, really innovative and engaging and immersive gameplay out of some indie games. And that's really what Eternal Crusade felt like. And then the minute that large studios get involved, or things change dramatically, and you could kind of watch it happen. You've got the executive producer and the lead dev both have moved on to other projects. And that happens. That's okay. But it was definitely a different sort of tone. And if I wasn't as big of a 40K fanboy, I would probably be a little concerned right now.
Yeah, I'll certainly keep an eye on it. It was something I've been looking at but haven't been following, so I know you and Cross spoke very highly of the project, but since you're showing concern, I might hold off and see where things actually go before I start jumping on the bandwagon.
Yeah, and I think that's fair. You're not going to lose anything by waiting and seeing how it goes. Let let the beta happen and get some word back. And I think trust me, I think it actually could turn out to be still quite good. But it will definitely be a different style of game. I am still looking for, I have not yet found an FPS that stuck around long enough that really scratched the itch that I wanted in terms of what my desires for a niche game is. But I think it could be pretty good. All right, let's see. I think we've tapped out most of our topics. I would like to go ahead.
We could talk about the limitation that popped up on ISK trading and requiring loyalty rank 4 and the changes to that requirement.
Now, yeah, that's actually a great point there, Pokey. Now, I thought that when it came out, there was already a limitation. I mean, that was a known thing before it dropped, right?
Well, so. Frame said they were tradable assets. He didn't specifically say items and not ISK, and so when the system came out and ISK was limited, he said, well, I said assets and ISK is an asset, so that's why it's in there. So I think the majority of people did not expect ISK to be part of it.
Yeah, no, I see what you're saying. I didn't realize that that's what the issue was. I knew that trading items like rifles or whatever had a limitation. I didn't realize that they had put in an ISK band as well. It's pretty draconian. Was there a reason for that, or was that like a boo-boo?
Rattati responded and said that it was an attempt to prevent exploits, likely from, I don't know, selling off assets or something for new characters. I'm not sure. There were obviously issues, and so they wanted to add that limitation so you couldn't just drop into the game with a new character and start trading ISK around.
You guys decided to tackle this one while I was AFK. Okay, very cool. All right. Yeah, so the loyalty rank requirement for ISK trading. Yes. That was apparently intentional. That was not something that the CPM was at all aware was going to happen. It did. So, and now it's down to 2, but yeah, it's I guess it's a exploit prevention issue. I assume because even with the reduced value, there are still people doing alt farming sorts of tactics, that sort of thing.
Guilty as charged.
So the reduction from loyalty rank 4 to 2 to unlock trading, is that for assets and ISK or just the
ISK?
Yes.
Currently there is no way to... Apparently, the loyalty rank requirement to trade refers to ISK and assets, and there is currently no code way to separate the two. But they mentioned that they would like to look at being able to separate those in the future. Personally, I was pretty not fond of even the loyalty rank requirement for asset trading being as high as it was, namely 4, because I don't think it should be something that should be gated out from new players. I think it's a huge win for the community to have trading be a real thing, and for it to be impacted by this limit that you either have to have played a fairly significant amount or have spent money is kind of rough.
Well, especially with the feature as core as trading, which is obviously common in most games as being a base feature, trying to hide that behind a paywall. I mean, the intention obviously wasn't to make it a paywall, but that's what it ends up being because getting to rank 4 is lengthy. Rattati has said that it's easy to get there with normal play. I disagree. I know Kane Spiro has started a new alt, which he's going to be playing on without spending Aurum.
He's already given up, I think. He said he was thinking about giving up a few days ago, and I haven't heard any updates since. But
he did give in.
Yeah, I think he gave in and just spent $10 or something.
Yeah. No, Kane.
Kane. I've referred to Kane though the other day. I like this phrase for Kane since he was the one who decided to test war barge leveling mechanics and with buying components, and he spent I think he did how much money did he spend buying keys for strong boxes to see how their rate panned out for those, and then he was going to do this manual loyalty rank leveling. And I'm referring to Kane Sparrow from now forward as a masochist for science. He seems to be willing to test things that no sane person would ever want to put themselves through.
His wallet hates him.
But yeah, I mean, I fully get the exploit bar. I'm cool with people not being able to trade on day one. They really shouldn't need to trade on day one. They have nothing to trade. But I don't think it should be more than 2 weeks of casual play, you should be expecting to be able to trade.
I would just, I think if you can trade after the academy, that would be legitimate. And then and if anybody's got beef, it's never bad to make the academy a little bit longer.
Mm-hmm. Something like that. It really should be enough to create an annoying effort if you're trying to exploit farm with with alts, but it shouldn't be oh god, I gotta unlock trading for someone who's actually playing the game.
Well, and this kind of falls under one of those things where a new player comes in and they're expecting, okay, it's an MMO game, there are lots of players playing, I'm expecting to trade, and someone tells you, well, you can play the game for X number of months and unlock trading, or you can spend $20 and get it. And to a new player, that's going to really kind of tick them off. I mean, people are going to expect trading to be something that they can obtain easily or have it built in. And I totally get the wanting to avoid the exploit thing. I get that. I'm not arguing against that. But for perception from new players, they're really going to dislike seeing that. I mean, it's very similar to when we had the UVTs, where you couldn't speak in a chat room. You had to buy an item to actually be able to talk.
Oh,
That's the old times, man. Most of the people listening to this podcast probably don't even remember the UVT.
Yeah, so for those of you who don't remember or weren't around for it, basically you had to buy an item which would allow you to have voice chat in chat channels that were outside of match. So you could still talk to people in match with your squad, with your team, whatever. But if you wanted to have a custom chat channel and you wanted to talk on it, you had to buy an item that would let you do it. And it was annoying as shit because you try to have a meeting with somebody and they couldn't participate unless they had this damn item, and so now you're forcing them to basically spend money to get very basic features such as, talking to each other. And eventually they abolished it because it was bullshit. And I really feel like that this limitation on trading, I feel like that the way they limited it is very similar to that, where people are expecting very basic functions from a game, and coming into it, they're going to go, I have to pay $20 to get to rank 4 so I can, trade items. Like, seriously? Because the amount of time necessary to get to that without spending money is so absurdly long that people aren't going to bother with it. And I think that sets a really bad tone and gives players that are new to the game have a really bad taste in their mouth over it. So the reduction to 2 is a little more reasonable. I honestly don't know how long it takes to get to 2 because I've been around for a while. So
Kane probably won't make it to 2, so we won't know.
Well, and that's the thing, is that when you call Kane a masochist because he's testing this stuff, because it's so painful to grind through without spending money, that tells you something right there. That no one would actually want to do this without spending money because it's such a pain in the ass. So I think that's really bad.
Now I'm gonna be that guy, and I'm gonna. Do you remember all the drama that we had over the war barges, like not too long ago? Like, we've kind of moved on from that discussion, but that problem, which is not dissimilar than what you're describing, is still there. That's totally not fixed either.
Yeah, and people will say, oh, well, it's not pay to win because, you can earn it eventually. And it's like, well, okay, but if it takes months to get there, or you can spend $5 to get it now, that, advantage of spending money is not balanced. That's not okay.
Right. No one is going to get to a comparable level without money.
And the passive generation components too are still really problematic. I mean, if we could somehow change the whole produce ISK X amount every day, and maybe switch that to get X amount of extra ISK at the end of a match, I mean, that could kind of go a ways toward helping with this passive generation issue. That's probably the cause for putting a lot of this stuff behind a paywall.
I mean, the UVT at least, the UVT had an actual solid reason for having a cost, and that's because they have a third-party provider for voice services, which I think everybody should be publicly aware of. And it's the same one that does Eve, and of course, Eve players, they
don't use it for a reason. They
need the more complex channel management you get from a third-party solution like Mumble, which we're using now. But the thing is that Eve players pay a subscription fee, which covers the sort of third-party fees they may deal with a voice server. But I assume that the cost is because they have to pay for another company to do their voice.
I would, I've thought about this many times in the past. even though it would somewhat fly in the face of what Dust has always been with a free-to-play game. I because I'm a longtime Eve player, I'm very used to the idea of subscriptions. And other MMOs I've played in the past have all been subscription based, so I'm somewhat inoculated to the idea. I would, if they would come up with like a some sort of, not a subscription, but like, hey, here's a monthly fee of $6 or $7 or whatever it is, and then I get it's like running a perma booster, or you get like, extra items, like your merc agent delivers you a box of weapon stash or something once a month or whatever the hell. I would consider doing that. Or that gives you, instant access to like War Barge level 2 and all this other, drama. I think that there might be something to that. I know that that's also the least profitable model, because generally people will splurge buy on microtransaction games, and that's literally how they make money, is on these sales spikes by individuals. It's not so much a steady outlay of cost over time by large groups of people. So it would be interesting to see how that would work out. I mean, because I would much rather pay for that than going in and buying like this huge chunk of Warm, every 6 months or something like that.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that honestly, companies probably get more money out of me from annual subscriptions or monthly subscription, just because I'm not always necessarily playing it, but I'm still paying for it. Like I'll use Final Fantasy 14 or even Eve, for example, where I'm probably not playing enough to actually make it be worth my money, but they're still getting it out of my paycheck every month. And I think that actually I make more money with an option, at least for a monthly package, we'll call it, for items or whatnot, than they would if they just had people buying, nickel and diming for items and whatnot.
Yeah, no, I think that's pretty fair, man. Let's see. So I guess the real question is, are they going to do anything? So they're really not going to do anything to fix the level that you're the entry point for moving ISK and assets. Is that right, Zell?
Well, they've already reduced it from 4 to 2, and they're talking about the wanting to revisit what is passively gained in the game in the future, and they want to add the ability to specify different requirements for ISK and item trading in the future as well, and to potentially revisit the loyalty rank requirement numbers in question down the road. So,
okay.
The current solution is not necessarily final.
And you may or may not have anything on this one, but are they going to do any more passes on the War Barge itself?
I don't have anything up on that. I mean, I would like to see the existing passes replaced by something more, down the road. I think we end up with a lot of passive gains because passive gains are very easy to code. And I think in some cases it's just, the different things that they're trying to get done don't leave enough room to develop really, really robust systems in some cases. But yeah, I'd like to see them do more with that. One of the things that I particularly mentioned, I don't know if we'll get any traction with it, but their post in regards to the loyalty rank requirements for trading specifically mentioned the statement that loyalty rank is shared between alt characters on an account, and that people should be using those if they have legitimate purposes. I did point out to CCP that one of the issues with that is that you only get passive ISK or passive SP on a single character, and that while you can add boosters and stuff, you get that free passive SP on only one character, and you can get that on as many PSN accounts as you want for free, and that they could make that work much better if they were to do something like allow that to apply to all characters on an account. So I did bring that up. I don't know if we'll get anywhere with it, but it's just something that I pushed at as a point based on their post.
Well, that's fair. Okay. So anybody else got any random topics they want to throw on the table? Awesome. All right. So we are going to go ahead and roll right into shout-outs, guys. And we're going to start at the top and work our way down. So Bait, you're going to be up first for shout-outs, brother.
All right, cool. I'd like to give a shout out to Demonic Cowboys Corporation. Let's see. Would also like to give a shout out again from last week to the Game Society Pimps. Love those Christopher Walken throughs.
Okay. Jadek.
All right. I want to give a shout out to Catmurk for his Cards Against Humanity Dust 514 edition. That was really fun. I was playing that earlier with Bait and Hinox and Catmurk, and we were just having a blast.
That's legit.
It was really good. Highly encourage getting in on that if you can.
Oh, that could be a lot of fun. Okay. Pokey.
Shout out to my mom. It is Mother's Day, if people hopefully remembered, for putting up with me and rolling her eyes when I tell her that we have to wait on dinner because I have to do a podcast for a video game. So shout out to my mom.
Awesome. And Soraya.
I'm going to give my shout out to Aiwha Bait for ensuring that we have people who write for our blog that aren't the editors for the blog. I do really appreciate that. It makes us look like 10 times less, like back of a truck grade professional. So I appreciate it. Your articles are awesome. Thank you very much.
They're not awesome, but thank you.
They are pretty good. Okay. So for shout-outs, I'm Jason Learson, and I'm going to throw a couple, 3 shout-outs out there. One to my mom, because it is Mother's Day, and the second to my wife, Heather, who has done an incredible job of being a mom to our 6-year-old son. So that's massive props to them, and the fact that she also lets me do podcasting on Sunday night when normally I would be putting our kid to bed and stuff like that. So appreciate that. I would also give a shout out to the entire crew that's putting together the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I think we talked a little bit about it earlier, but Age of Ultron, really good flick. Highly recommend it to everybody to check out. However, I will have to tell you that is going to have some serious competition when the Dawn of Justice comes out, i.e. Batman versus Superman. I think it'll be interesting.
It'll fall flat on its face when that movie comes out.
And I would tell you that all of them should be quaking in their collective boots come February of 16 when Deadpool comes out, because that will quite literally set the industry standard for comic book superhero movies. Just throwing it out there.
Really now? You are backing a lot of you. That is a lot to set on Ryan Reynolds' shoulders. I'm just saying.
Yeah. And that's no different than how much money you spent on Star Citizen, yo. All right. Okay, guys, we're going to go ahead and land the plane on this one tonight. Again, we really appreciate you joining us. A little bit disjointed, but we had a good chat about some different topics here and there. And actually, Zell, if you can, maybe you could give us like a full Monty rundown, like 5-minute rundown of your Heroes of the Storm game next week. Would that be okay?
It's a game. I play it occasionally. It's kind of fun.
Okay, I'm trying to help us out here because I don't really want to Google it. I just want you to explain it to me. Then I will determine if it's good enough for me to Google it and then play it.
That's okay. I'm glad that you value my opinion so much that it determines whether or not you Google something.
But the bar is pretty low to Google shit. I can just tell Siri and she finds it. So, hey, well, is there PvP in that game?
Yeah, it's if you heard of League of Legends, out of curiosity.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's very similar, except Blizzard makes it and it doesn't suck.
So do you PvP in the game?
I do. It's the only way. Unless you're playing like against. I guess you can play against bots.
You can play against bots.
But it's a PvP game at its core.
Okay. All right. As long as I get to like stab you in the face with some sort of like mystical like spear of ass whipping plus 3.
Yeah, I've got a beta key if you want it.
Oh yeah, it's I might actually let me check, man. We'll talk to you. I'll talk to you off air about it real quick. But yeah, no, I appreciate that. So okay, guys. Well, on that note, we are gonna, before we go into another rabbit hole tangent, we're gonna go ahead and call this show to a close. And so, good night and